Thank you. Nice to see everyone. How are you all doing? Can you hear me? Is the microphone on? Okay. I'd like to start today by thanking Chris and the school for the invitation to come here and talk to you. I think Inspire Tokyo is a great idea. It's really great to be able to reach out to young people who have an interest in the world and different subjects. So I hope that you will all go to more of the rest of the talks that are going on, and I hope that this is interesting for you today. I'm going to talk to you a bit about my country, Ireland. I'm going to talk to you about my job, the main issues that we're dealing with as the Department of Foreign Affairs, the organisation that I work for. And we have a lot of things we have to deal with today in the world. We have climate change, migration, poverty, conflicts in different parts of the world. So there's a lot of issues that we have to address, and diplomats cover all of those things in different ways. Before getting too much into the issues, I'm going to talk a little bit about I'll give you a little bit of background about Ireland. Ireland is quite small, and it's a long way away. I don't know, has anyone ever been to Ireland? No? That doesn't count, you're from Ireland. But I know that there are some Irish teachers at some of these schools, so hopefully some of you will have heard a little bit about Ireland before. First thing first, where is Ireland? They know where Ireland is? Ireland is on the west coast of Europe. It's an island, like Japan. It's about the same size as Hokkaido. And like Japan, we have a much bigger and historically more powerful country on one side of us, and then we have a huge ocean on the other side. Now there's something that's important to remember, is that Ireland is not Iceland. We get that mistake all the time. So all of you today, I want you to make sure that when you go around, and if anybody ever gets confused between Iceland and Ireland, you let them know that we're not the same. So Iceland has volcanoes and ice, but Ireland is famous for being green, and that's part of the reason why I chose a green background. Green is the colour that we use for a lot of the things that we do. We have lots of grass and trees and lots of agriculture as a result. Ireland is a member of the European Union, which is the organisation, international organisation that many of the countries on this map are members of. That's the flag of the EU. And the currency of Ireland is the euro. €1 is worth about 130 yen, but I'm sorry, I didn't bring any samples for you to look at today. Key facts about Ireland. This is a map of Ireland. Dublin is the capital of Ireland, and it's here on the east coast. I'm from a town that's about here, called Selbridge in Kildare. Major cities in Ireland: Dublin, Cork, Limerick, Galway's here, Sligo's up here. There are two countries on the island of Ireland. We have Ireland, and we also have Northern Ireland. There you can see, Northern Ireland. But even though these are two different countries, historically we have 4 provinces in Ireland. Leinster, Connacht, Munster and Ulster. And if any of you like rugby, I don't know if you do, you should be familiar with those rugby teams. They're very successful in Europe. Why do we have 2 countries on the island of Ireland? Well, historically, England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland were all together. In 1916 to 1922 there was a war, and the 26 counties split away at the end of that, and the 6 counties in the north remained part of the UK. I have been told that there are some film fans in this school, and I was wondering, does anybody know what very famous film was made in Ireland last year?
Last year?
Well, it came out last year. What is? Anybody? Okay, you can tell me if you recognise this film.
Star Wars is places now actually really related to who the characters are. We want to make sure that wherever we went in this movie, all
Sorry, it's a little quiet.
we needed to find somewhere completely from another place. Skellig Michael was on the Irish coast.
I think so. Well, Maybe some of you recognise this from Star Wars. This is called Skellig Michael, which is, as you can see, a small island just off the west coast. That's Luke Skywalker talking about how much he loves filming it there.
It's sort of a miracle in some ways. We could not be more honored to be here, to feel lucky.
So now you all have to go to Ireland and see the famous Skellig Michael. But unfortunately, that little island, the weather's quite bad a lot of the time, so it's very difficult to get up to go and see it. You have to go on a really small boat that goes on the big waves, and many tourists are trying to go now, but if you're lucky, the weather will be nice. What's Ireland like? Demographics, what's the population like? Some Irish people enjoying football. The population of Ireland is 4.76 million, which is similar to Fukuoka, Ken. The population of Ireland is much younger than Japan. I think it's actually the youngest country in Europe. The average age is only 37.4, whereas in Japan, over 25% of people are over 65. So we have a lot of issues in Ireland to make sure that we have enough schools for young people and enough university places, whereas I know in Japan, there are obviously issues with people getting older and trying to find care homes for them to be looked after in, and hospitals. Ireland, quite different from Japan. About 11.4% of people in Ireland are not from Ireland at all. They're from England, they're from Eastern Europe, they're from Poland, and we've been very lucky that foreign people that have come in have made a really good impact on Ireland. So I want to talk a little bit about myself, because I know it's interesting to people, especially young people. How do you become a diplomat? So I'll just tell you my story. There's no rule about how you become a diplomat. But as I mentioned, Chris Green, Second Secretary and Consul at the Embassy. Like I said, I'm from County Kildare in Ireland, and this, by the way, is me talking in a pub to JETS. Does anyone know the JET program? JET program? Okay, it's young people from around the world who speak English come to Japan to teach English in various little small towns all over the place. So these are all young people from Ireland who have come to teach English, and there's me talking to them. I studied a Bachelor of Arts History and Politics at University College Dublin, which is one of the biggest university, or the second biggest university in Ireland. I was lucky that while I was there I had the opportunity to do some additional subjects, so I studied Arabic for about a year and a half, which is very difficult. I don't know if it's more difficult than Japanese, but it's certainly up there. After completing my undergraduate, I went to Morocco, where I spent 3 months in Morocco volunteering at a school, teaching some English. You can see here I was doing a bit of painting and just generally helping out in an area where the students were quite poor. They didn't have a lot of opportunities, so we were just there to help out. But if you ever have the opportunity, volunteering is a great way to get some experience of something you'll never have done before, and to meet new people and to do something that's very positive. After that, I came back to Ireland and I worked full time as a barman when I was young, and then I ended up going to Syria for 3 months because I'd studied Arabic and I wanted to learn a little more Arabic. But unfortunately, while I was there, things got a little bit worse. So I intended to stay for a while, but I had to leave after 3 months. And if you see that temple where I was in 2015, that's what ISIS did to it, unfortunately. So I was very lucky to get to Syria and to see the beautiful history that's there. Thousands of years of history of Roman armies and different armies coming in, the Egyptians fighting, and all those types of things. So great experience to get to go there. And when I came back, I had some more experience, and I decided to go do a master's in UCD again at the UCD Clinton Institute. And I studied media and international conflict. What does that mean? It's looking at how do journalists work with the government, with the military, with the public at times of war. How do those type of things interact? Very, very interesting, and I was lucky that it gave me good experience that has helped me further on in my life. But it was good to actually study something that I was interested in, and I met a lot of great people through doing it, and I had some great teachers. So after my masters, what did I do? I went and did an internship in 2012 at the Department of Communications, Energy and Natural Resources. Now, they've changed their name now, but it's still the same division. I was in the press office, so I was working with the minister, who is the politician who runs the department, and I was working with his advisors, and I was working with senior officials. Unbelievably great experience. If you ever get the chance to do an internship in a big organisation, it would be really positive for you. One of the big things that I worked on was this event called the Digital Assembly. Now, that was in 2013, and one of the big jobs that I had was to manage this tweet wall that we had at the back of the main event, which in 2013 was, everyone was very excited by it. They thought a tweet wall was very cool. I guess now it's a little more normal, but that was one of my big jobs when I was there. After that, I left. After my internship was finished, I became a press officer. A press officer is someone who manages the relationship between the media and an organisation. In this case, I work for the Green Party. And I know that my name is Chris Green. That's just a coincidence. But I used to ring people up every day and I'd say, "Hello, this is Chris Green from the Green Party." And they would say, "Really?" I'd be like, "Yes." And, "Really?" "Yes." Happened all the time. But it was a great organisation to work for. I went in at the end of 2013 and we were getting ready for an election that was coming up the next year. Unfortunately, the election didn't go very well. And my boss had to request a recount at the end, and that's my boss there. This is from the newspaper, and there's me looking quite depressed in the background. That was 3 o'clock in the morning, and the votes came down. It was there was only a few hundred votes between my boss and the other guy, and anyway they had a recount, and we didn't win. But really great experience working on an election campaign. Politics is fascinating. I think, again, it's another thing I'd really recommend to young people. It's a great way to meet people. And for me, it was something I was very interested in. The Green Party is all about the environment, about taking care of the environment and taking care of people. And those are things that I really cared about. So if you can find something you believe in, I would definitely recommend it. Another campaign that we worked on was the marriage equality referendum, which was... It enabled gay people to get married the same as straight people. And the good news for us was that we won. So this is me and my friends and my workers celebrating, and you can see me there singing. I believe we were singing the Irish national anthem, and there's all the media in the background, and it was an incredible day. So if you get involved in politics, hopefully you can get involved in the campaign you really care about. So then, in 2015, I left the Green Party and I joined the Department of Foreign Affairs. I came in as a third secretary. Anybody who is really sharply looking would notice that I'm now a second secretary. It's exactly the same. When you're in your HQ, when you're back at your home country, you're a third secretary, and when you're overseas, you're a second secretary. There's no difference at all. So I went into the department. This is the building where the department is based. And I went into Consular Division. What does Consular Division do? Does anybody ever heard of Consular Division? No? Consular? Okay. Consular, and my job is Second Secretary, and Consular. What does it mean? It means helping people from your country who maybe they are in prison, maybe they've just been arrested, maybe they are in the hospital, maybe they've lost their passport. It's all about helping people. So when I was in Dublin, I was working in the Consular Division, helping a lot of people who overseas who were in jail, and they were maybe quite famous in the media. Very interesting, good experience. Then 2016, I got sent out here to Tokyo. This is where the embassy is in Kojimachi. As you can see, the second secretary and consul. What are the things that I work on? Consular and administration, like I just said. Administration, keeping the lights on, making sure that the embassy is open every day and that everyone gets paid on time. It's not the most interesting, but it's very important. I also cover agriculture and food. At the moment, I do agriculture policy, which means helping the Irish government to negotiate new agreements with the Japanese government to get in different food, and then also promotion. So if we have some Irish company, they want to sell something here, we try to help them out. And in 2011, we had our Ireland's Minister for Agriculture, and you'll see behind him was me again. And this is one of Japan's Ministers for Agriculture across the table. So actually in that meeting, we had an agreement between the two governments about a policy issue, which I'm still working on, but it's actually going really, really well, and we hope that it's going to be putting a lot of opportunities for Irish companies. So these types of meetings between two governments, between two ministers, two representatives, are really important. And that's how we get things done, as diplomats. I also cover energy and environment. Next week, I'm going up to Fukushima Daiichi to go see what the situation is at the invitation of TEPCO. Other times, I'll work with Irish energy companies if they want to sell their products here, policy, regulation, those types of things. I do lots of other things as well, but I also, the other main one is sport, which I'm going to talk a bit about today. Takes up a lot of my time. You might know, Rugby World Cup is here next year in Japan. It's going to be huge, like tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people from other countries are going to come here. And then of course we have the Olympics in 2020. This is a picture from last year when the Irish rugby team came to Japan, and this is one of the events that we organised where the team met the fans. So sports in Ireland, what kind of sports do people like in Ireland? Football or soccer? It's the Irish team. Rugby, 17% of people. GAA, which we're going to talk a little bit about. You see down here, and then swimming, tennis, and horse racing. You might notice. Can anybody say something that's missing? Maybe if you're in Japan. No.
Baseball?
No baseball. What else? No.
American football.
Well, maybe I don't know about Japan, but certainly no judo, no sumo, no karate. So I guess football is probably soccer is probably the most popular here as well. But you see, it's kind of different. So there's a little bit of a difference there. So GAA. What is GAA? GAA stands for the Gaelic Athletics Association. It was founded in 1884. There are 4 sports: Gaelic football, hurling, camogie, and handball. I'm going to talk a bit today about Gaelic football and hurling. It's played at Croke Park, which is the main stadium in Dublin. And the GAA has a big history in Ireland becoming an independent country. It was very important for people getting in touch with their Irish identity and seeing how Irish people were, different from British people. And a lot of the people who set up the GAA were involved in the movement for independence. All the players in Ireland are amateur. That means they don't get paid. There's no money. They get some expenses, to drive the car and to go back and forth, but it's a lot of training, a lot of hard work for no money at all. Like I was saying, this is Croke Park in Dublin. Even though Ireland is a small country, that's 82,000 seats, and they will fill that quite a few times a year. So Gaelic sports are absolutely massive in Ireland. Croke Park, the nickname is Croker. You'll hear everyone talk about Croker. And it's been in use by the GAA since 1884. 4 stands: Davin, Cusack, Hogan, and the Hill. The Hill is this one over here, and like I said, 82,300 is the capacity. named after this guy, Archbishop Thomas Croke, who was a founding member of the GAA. And unfortunately, the Croke Park is very famous for an incident that happened in 1920. On a day known as Bloody Sunday, Irish rebels assassinated a lot of people who they thought were secret agents for the British at the time. And in response, British soldiers drove into the stadium through one of the gates and shot a lot of people. They killed 14 fans and one player on that day. So this is a very famous incident in Irish history. One of those players was called Michael Hogan, who you'll see above one of the stands is named after him.
Chris, quick question. So
Yeah.
you said that was referred to or known as Bloody Sunday?
There's more than one Bloody Sunday in
So
Irish
that's not the
history.
U2 song?
No, it's not. It's not.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately in Irish history there have been quite a few Bloody Fridays and Bloody Sundays, and we've had a difficult history, unfortunately.
And one other question about
Sure.
the Gaelic Athletics Association.
Yeah.
Is that in Ireland and Northern Ireland? Does it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's actually in the next slide.
Oh.
Gaelic sports are played in all 32 counties across the whole island of Ireland. And it's also played in New York, in London, in Australia, and in Japan. There's a team here in Japan. Now, they don't play in Ireland. They only play in Japan, and sometimes, like once a year, there's games around Asia. But Gaelic sports are huge all over the world, wherever we have Irish communities. Gaelic football, how is it played? Two teams, 15 players each. It's a bigger pitch than football. You can see that's 145 metres long. I think a football pitch is only about 100. Matches are 70 minutes, so soccer, is 90 minutes. How do you score? These are the goals. You score a goal in here, it's 3 points. You get one over the bar, that's 1 point. As I was saying, there's 32 teams across Ireland, 32 county teams, plus New York and London, who play in the main domestic Irish league. The highest trophy you can get in Gaelic sports is the All Ireland, and the one for football is called the Sam Maguire. The current champions are Dublin, and there they are celebrating in Croke Park in Dublin. So, who wants to watch a video of some Gaelic football being played? Yeah. No. Unfortunately, there's no sound on this one. So, you just have to imagine lots of people shouting. But you see, you can pick the ball up with your hands, you can bounce it, and you can score a goal like that. Now, you can't run with the ball in your hands the whole time. You have to either bounce the ball, or you kick it on your foot, which if you watch, they'll kind of kick it on the foot and then catch it themselves. It's called soloing. So you can run, and every couple of steps you have to kick it on your foot. You can do that as many times as you want. You can't bounce it lots and lots and lots of times. You can do bounce, kick, or just kick, kick, kick. Because otherwise it would be too easy. This is played in Croke Park, as you can see, big stadium.
And so these players receive no money for this?
No money at all. Yeah. So you can see they're playing for 82,000 people, and they're not getting paid for it. They just do it for the love of their community. Everyone in Ireland knows people who play Gaelic sports, and it's a really, really, really big commitment to put into your life. Several nights a week you're training, and people drive all over the country to make their training. So it's a lot. It's a lot. Now, the other main sport we're going to talk about today is hurling. Hurling is the fastest field game in the world. There's nothing faster played on grass. It's similar rules to Gaelic football. 15 players aside, 3 points for a goal, one point for over the bar. Same organisational structure. It's run by the GAA, and there's 32 counties play in Ireland. Again, New York, London, other countries around the world play it as well. The rules are broadly similar. Actually, I'm not going to go into them because I'm not an expert. But you want to be careful of those sticks, because they'll hit you with the sticks. You can't hit anyone in the head or anything like that. You're not really supposed to hit them at all. But when you have 30 guys on a pitch with sticks and they're trying to get after a ball, people are going to get hit with it. So you see that's why they wear helmets. You have to be incredibly tough to play hurling, and I played it for a little while when I was in Ireland, but I am not tough. I'm much better doing things like this and studying than getting hit with a big stick. You can see the current champions are Galway again. That's in Croke Park. That's where the final is obviously played every year. And the trophy is called the Liam McCarthy Cup. I can't remember who Liam McCarthy is, but that's what the trophy is called. Now, I'll show you a video. This one should have a bit of sound. And you can see. So the ball is about the same size as a baseball, but there's no gloves. And you can see, I mean, like the skill to catch a ball out of the air, like while running at that speed, is really something else. So you can't hold the ball in your hand while you're running. You have to balance it on the end of the stick, which makes it quite difficult for other people who are trying to knock it off. You can carry it for a few steps, but then you have to put it back on the stick. And you can see there's like some distance there. It's like 60 meters or so that they're scoring those points from. You can also, like that guy did there, you can kick it as well. That's a bit of hurling for you. Now there is a team in Tokyo if you feel like you want to play it. It's like I said, you have to be tough, but it's a lot of fun. And if anybody's interested, I'm sure they can get in touch and be happy to tell them. Another main sport in Ireland, rugby. Rugby World Cup is coming. Rugby is run by the IRFU, which stands for the Irish Rugby Football Union. Rugby is run on an all-island basis. So we were saying, the island of Ireland is two countries, but rugby is played as one island. So Northern Ireland and Ireland are together. As a result of that, the IRFU was founded in 1879, which makes it one of the oldest unions in the world. Irish people have been playing rugby for 130 years or so. The Anthem of Irish rugby. You can see here we have a flag, and if you remember from earlier, those are the 4 provinces of Ireland, and then the shamrock, which is Ireland's national flag. Because Ireland is an all-Ireland team, we can't have one national anthem, so Irish rugby has its own special song called Ireland's Call, but when the team plays in Dublin, they will play both songs. They'll play Ireland's Call and Our on the Bean, which is Ireland's national anthem. The team are coached by this guy, Joe Schmidt, who's a hero of mine and a hero of lots of people in rugby. He came out here last summer with the Irish team. He's from New Zealand, and under him we've had a lot of success. Ireland are now second in the world, so we have big hopes for next year. And we just won the Six Nations in Ireland. We got the Grand Slam, which means we beat England, Wales, Scotland, France and Italy all in the same competition. So at the moment we're on a high, and we have really, really big hopes for what's going to happen next year. Rugby World Cup 2019. Ireland are playing 4 group games. Playing Scotland in Yokohama in September, 22nd September. Then we're playing Shizuoka against Japan. So you'll be watching out for that one. And then undecided teams in Kobe and Fukuoka. This is taking up a lot of my time at the MC now. I'm working very hard on this. We need to prepare for the team to come. We have to prepare for thousands and thousands of Irish fans to come to Japan. We're looking to promote Ireland as much as possible for business, for culture, and just really to make the biggest opportunity of it that we can. Next week, I'm actually flying off to Fukuoka, and I'll be in Fukuoka, and then I'll be in Kitakyushu, and then I'm going to Kobe just for rugby-related meetings, to go and meet the local government, to have a chat with them, to talk to the organising committee, meet the police, go to the hospital, and just make those contacts so that we can be sure that everything's going to go very well when the team get here. One of the things that we also have to think about is that Ireland's Prime Minister might come. So in case we weren't going to be busy enough, Ireland's Prime Minister is a big fan of rugby, so he might come to Japan as well next year, just to support the team. If we get through our group, we will play maybe in a quarter-final that'll be in Tokyo. After that, it's a semi-final. Ireland have never gotten to a semi-final in rugby before. So if Japan don't get out of your rugby group, I hope you all support Ireland and you'll join us, because we want to get as many fans as possible. Okay, I've talked a bit about what I do. Who do I work for? I work for the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. What does the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade do? Well, I thought the mission statement is a pretty good place to start. The mission of the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade is to serve the Irish people, promote their values and advance their prosperity and interests abroad, and to provide the government with the capabilities, analysis and influence to ensure that Ireland derives the maximum benefit from all areas of its external engagement. What does it mean? Hopefully, I think it's pretty straightforward. I should think, my job and the job of my colleagues is to make sure that Ireland gets the maximum return out of all its relationships with other countries and other organisations. How do we do it? We have 83 missions all around the world. Green means that we have an embassy there. Red means no embassy. So you can see all over Europe, we have, I think there should be 27, there should be more than 27 there. So almost everywhere in Europe. Then we have Asia and Australia and Oceania. Obviously, we have here in Japan. We have the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Israel, and Abu Dhabi as well. Next year, they are going to be opening up in Lebanon and some other countries as well. Across the US, Ireland has a very, very important relationship with the US. You can see we have 7 missions in the US, and next year they are talking about opening up one in Los Angeles as well. And as you can probably imagine, lots of people want to go to Los Angeles, so I think there'll be lots of people applying to go work there. 2 in South America, many in Africa. We do a lot of work on aid, and also Africa is growing. It's growing population, growing importance. And then, how can we forget? We have permanent representations to these international organisations. A permanent representation, or as we call it, a perm rep. A perm rep is exactly the same as an embassy, except an embassy can only be in a country. So a perm rep is like the embassy to an international organisation. One of Ireland's, or Ireland's biggest one is here. Permanent representation of Ireland to the European Union. About 80 people work in that embassy, working on all the issues of agriculture, environment, energy, food, trade, just everything. Everything to do with the economy is going on in Brussels. So that's a very, very important one for us. Ireland's foreign policy. This is the document that tells us about what Ireland's foreign policy is about, what its keys are. The 4 key areas that the document identifies are our people, our prosperity, our values, our place in Europe, and our influence. They're not that easy, I guess, to figure out what they mean at the start. Our people means, like we were talking about, consular, about helping Irish people who are overseas. But it also means Northern Ireland. We have a really, really strong relationship with people in Northern Ireland, so we include the Northern Irish peace process in that. Our prosperity is the second one. What's that? It's about Ireland, being successful economically. It's making sure that when there are opportunities out there that we take advantage of them. The trade between Ireland and Japan is about 10 billion euros a year. It's very, very important to Ireland. And the embassy here strongly supports the efforts of Irish companies and the Irish state agencies who are trying to grow that trade every year. My job working in agriculture has been to help that to grow, to help Irish companies, and I'm very pleased to say that we've seen good growth over the past few years, and we've really big hopes for what's going to happen in the future. The next, values. What are values? What are values? Values are things that you believe in as people. They're the things that guide you. Ireland has been very active in values areas. Disarmament, trying to stop nuclear weapons being around the world. We've been very active on that. I was just in Hiroshima a few weeks ago with one of our government ministers to show our support for the people there and to show our commitment to it. Combating poverty, hunger, advocating for human rights with the UN, working on peacekeeping. Ireland is very active overseas, trying to help keep the peace in different areas. So it's one of those key things that we're always working on. Our place in Europe, as I said, Ireland is a member of the EU. It's incredibly important to what we do. We joined the EU in 1973, and being a part of the EU has amplified a lot of what we try to do. So it's one of our key goals to work with our European partners to make sure that the future is even better. And then finally our influence, and that one's a bit more corporate. It's talking about making sure that we use our resources as best we can. So it's just a nice kind of diagram talking about what it is that we're trying to do. So, why does Brexit matter to Ireland? You've all heard of Brexit? Hopefully lots of you have heard of Brexit. I'm not going to say too much about it today, but I'll explain a little bit. Why does Brexit matter to Ireland? Well, if we're talking about our people, we've got our people in Northern Ireland, we've got the peace process, we have our prosperity. Ireland trades hugely with the UK. It's our second largest trading partner after the rest of the EU. And obviously Brexit is going to impact our place in Europe. You can see here the UK and Ireland. After Brexit happens, this is going to be the only land border between Europe and the UK. What are the rules going to be that judge how different products can go across those borders? Right now, if you were here right now and you drove here, there's no border. You just drive. You drive down the road and maybe your phone goes beep beep when it changes network from the Irish to the Northern Irish one. But there's no guards. There's no soldiers. There's no checkpoints. There's nothing. It's just you can just go straight across. Working for the Irish government, that's the way that we'd like it to stay. It's been very, very important for our peace process. As I mentioned before, until 1922, Ireland was part of the United Kingdom. This was all together. But in 1922, it became an independent country. As I also said, there's 26 counties in the south, mostly Catholic areas, stayed in the south, while the 6 counties, which were mostly Protestant, became Northern Ireland. It was largely peaceful. There were problems, of course, between two different countries. But then in the 1960s, things got pretty bad. There was a lot of discrimination against Catholic people in Northern Ireland. And some people decided that the way to try and solve that was with violence. And that's when what was known as the Troubles began. What were the Troubles? The Troubles were a conflict between the Unionists, who wanted to stay in the UK, and Republicans, who wanted Ireland to be unified again, to become one country again. You can see here Troubles, British Army soldier and a young girl. It was a very common sight. The British Army were all over Northern Ireland, and it was a war. It was a guerrilla war. There were attacks, there were shootings, there were murders. It was really a dark time in Irish history. The Troubles lasted from 1968 to 1998. Approximately 50,000 people were injured in those 30 years. Of that, 3,500 people were killed, and more than 50% of those were civilians. When it seemed impossible that there would ever be peace, in 1998 there was a huge breakthrough with the Good Friday Agreement being signed. The Good Friday Agreement was signed on the 10th of April, which is 20 years tomorrow, so it's a very, very important time in Ireland's history, and there's going to be a lot of events around Ireland to commemorate the signing of the agreement. Here you can see the Prime Minister of England, Tony Blair, and the Prime Minister of Ireland, former Prime Ministers both, Bertie Ahern, signing the agreement between the two governments. Now, you know, people are worried that the Good Friday Agreement is at risk. You know, it was a very difficult thing to bring peace between two different communities. It took a lot of work on the part of politicians and diplomats to get that peace. How is Brexit going to affect that? You know, nobody knows. One of the really big risks is that this picture shows you Northern Ireland and Ireland, and as you can see, there are lots of roads, but there are actually 300 crossings across this border. It's 500 kilometres long, and during the Troubles, when there were 20,000 British soldiers patrolling all around here, you still had a really big war going on. And if those 20,000 soldiers couldn't stop, trouble then, what happens now if you try to put guards and stuff on the border to check goods or whatever it is? It's a really, really difficult problem to solve, or it could be a difficult problem to solve. We don't want it to become a problem in the first place. So that's why Ireland is very keen that the UK stays as close to the EU as possible. Over the past 20 years, the economies of Ireland and Northern Ireland have become very, very closely linked. I'm just reading a book at the moment about Brexit, and you have cows here who they get milk from, and then the milk goes in a truck and it comes maybe down here, and then the milk is turned into cheese, and then the cheese goes up this way and it gets put into a sandwich here, and then the sandwich gets sent over to the UK. It's very difficult for, if you put a border on here now, what's going to happen? These are rural areas, there's lots of farming, it's going to be very difficult for people to adapt if Brexit happens, like some people think it will. Right now, like I said, it's an invisible border. You can't see anything, you don't know that you've crossed the border. Different money, but there's nothing to see. Every day, more than 30,000 people cross the border just for work. Some people think that number is actually maybe a little bit low, that there could be more, but that adds up to 1 million people every month who are going across. It could be a really big problem if you put a border on there. What are Ireland's priorities for the negotiations ahead? First, the most important is to protect the Good Friday Agreement. Nothing should be done that will ever let the violence come back to Northern Ireland. It's the way that the country was, the way that Northern Ireland was 20 years ago compared to now, you wouldn't know. I mean, it's amazing what the peace has done for both communities. We want to maintain EU support for the peace process, which we have at the moment. The EU have been very clear, very supportive of Ireland in our priorities to support the peace process. To avoid that hard border that we talked about. In terms of economic reasons and for political reasons as well, and also to support North-South cooperation, which goes on all the time. I'm just going to finish up by just saying, why, people say like, well, Britain left the EU. Will Ireland leave the EU? And the answer is no, we will not leave the EU. Ireland is, very happy being a member of the European Union. There's like so many benefits. As an EU citizen, you can go live and work in any member state, like all over Europe. Being part of the single market means that you can sell, if you're an Irish company, you can sell what you make anywhere all over Europe. We've received money from the EU to help us build up our economy. Before 1973, we didn't, our infrastructure wasn't great. We have a lot more roads and rail lines and ports and things like that now. 700,000 jobs, Irish farmers benefit, legislation on equality has come from Europe and into Ireland. 50,000 students from Ireland have gone to the EU to study. Irish students working abroad can have their certifications recognised. The long story short is that being a member of the EU has been massively beneficial for Ireland, and we really hope that the UK, our closest partner, will choose to stay. But if they don't, we're going to stay in. Being part of the EU has just been a very positive experience for our economy, for our society, and for our people. And that's why, if you look at opinion polls, you'll see that Irish people are still very, very pro-EU. So I hope that was interesting for you. I'd like to say thank you for taking the time to come listen. And I'm looking forward to hearing any questions you might have.
All right, nothing else.